At 9:17 p.m., everyone in the ballroom thought Sienna Park had been humiliated. By 9:23, they thought she might be dangerous. 6 minutes earlier, Damon Voss had fired her on stage. The Grand Meridian Ballroom was packed with investors, reporters, clients, and executives waiting for Asterion Shield's acquisition announcement. Behind Damon, a 40-foot screen glowed with the company's slogan, "Trust is built before crisis." Damon stood beside Sienna with a calm smile and called her warnings disruptive. He called her reports excessive. He said her refusal to approve the acquisition audit showed a pattern of professional instability. Then security stepped forward. One guard took her laptop bag. Another took her phone. A third cut the badge from her neck. The badge hit the stage near her shoe. Damon let the cameras see it. For 3 years, that badge had opened secure floors, war rooms, and emergency consoles. Now it lay in 2 pieces while the room decided whether to pity her or judge her. Sienna did not pick it up. Then the main screen flickered. The acquisition slide vanished. A corrupted dashboard appeared in its place. Client portals began turning red, one after another, like warning lights on a sinking ship. A line of text spread across the screen. The exploit name matched the title of Sienna's old warning report. Someone at the investor table whispered. She knew. Damon heard it. And Sienna saw him choose the story before anyone else understood there was a story to choose. He did not ask who had access. He did not ask why the system had failed in the exact place she had warned them about. He turned toward the room and said, "Nobody touch anything. She knows this vulnerability better than anyone." The guards stepped closer. Sienna checked the backup clock in the corner of the screen. 11:59 p.m. Whoever had built this attack did not just want data. They wanted a witness. And they had chosen her. At Asterion Shield, Sienna Park had been known as the Mapmaker. Her official title was Cybersecurity Architect. But younger analysts called her the Mapmaker because she could spot the hidden doors inside complicated systems. Old service accounts, inherited authority, forgotten backup paths. She saw systems as human behavior written in code. That made her valuable. It also made her inconvenient. 2 months before the summit, Sienna placed a report on the glass table in Asterion's 31st floor conference room. Damon sat at the head of the table. Caleb Wren, the newly promoted CTO, stood near the screen. Evan Reed, a junior SOC analyst, sat near the wall with his tablet balanced on one knee. "The acquisition audit cannot go out like this," Sienna said. Caleb read the title page and frowned. "Recursive admin delegation through legacy service chain. It sounds worse than it is," he said. "It is worse than it sounds," Sienna replied. She opened the report to a diagram showing how an old deployment service could borrow authority from a reporting dashboard and pass it into the backup scheduler. No single step broke policy. Together, they created a path from limited access to backup manipulation without triggering standard alarms. "If someone understands this chain," she said, "they can make an attack look like it started from the person who reported the flaw." Evan looked up from his tablet. Caleb gave a short laugh. "That is speculative. That is threat modeling. That is fear." Sienna turned to Damon. "If we hide this from the audit, we are not selling security. We are selling a story." Damon finally picked up the report. He flipped through it too quickly to have read anything that mattered. "Sienna," he said gently, "every company has legacy complexity. Not every company is about to sell trust as its main asset." His smile stayed in place, but something behind it closed. After that meeting, the walls moved in. Caleb stopped inviting her to acquisition calls. Her comments were marked resolved without answers. Damon told her to route risk findings through Caleb for alignment. Then came the memo. It praised Sienna's technical ability, then claimed she struggled with executive risk posture, created unnecessary alarm, and disrupted the acquisition without saying she was wrong. At the bottom were 3 signatures. Damon Voss, Caleb Wren, Evan Reed. Sienna stared at Evan's name longer than the other 2. He came to her desk later, pale and holding a coffee he had not touched. "I'm sorry," he said. Did you write it? No. Did you sign it? He looked away. That answered enough. I was told it was just an internal note, Evan said. Caleb said if I didn't sign, it would look like I was part of the same refusal. The refusal to do what? To move forward. Sienna nodded once. Not forgiveness. Just recognition. Fear had done its work. In the following days, her report disappeared from the main audit folder and reappeared in a restricted legal archive. The new summary made the flaw sound theoretical and pushed containment to post-close remediation. When she confronted Caleb, he told her she was becoming emotional. When she confronted Damon, he told her timing mattered. The company has 400 employees, Damon said. Their equity matters. Their families matter. You are asking me to risk all of that because you dislike imperfection. I'm asking you not to confuse concealment with leadership. The next morning, her access to the acquisition audit was gone. On the night of the summit, Sienna did not come to make a scene. She came because legal had ignored her final email. Evan had stopped replying. The 11:59 backup rotation still touched the legacy chain, and Damon's acquisition announcement was set for 9:30. At 8:41, she found Evan behind the SOC console near the side of the ballroom. You shouldn't be here, he said. That's becoming a popular opinion. Sienna, they're watching you. Good, she said. Maybe they'll notice when I ask one simple question. Evan's eyes moved toward Caleb, who was speaking with two North Star executives near the stage. Don't, Evan whispered. She studied his face. What did they change? He swallowed. That answered more than he meant to. Before she could press him, Damon's voice filled the ballroom. He welcomed everyone to the future of Enterprise Trust. He praised Caleb. He thanked investors. He called the acquisition a partnership built on transparency. Then he paused. And transparency, Damon said, requires difficult decisions. Sienna felt Evan looking at her. Her badge gave a soft tone against the scanner at her hip. Not the normal tone. A revocation tone. Damon called her name. By the time she reached the stage, she understood the shape of the trap. He spoke kindly while he erased her. He let security take her devices. He let a guard cut the badge from her neck. He made the room watch her become an outsider. 6 minutes later, the attack began. Now, Sienna stood under the lights with guards closing in, the audience turning against her, and Damon already trying to make her name mean revenge. She looked at the exploit path glowing above his frozen smile. It was copied from her report, but copied wrong. That path had been renamed 3 weeks ago. Whoever built this had read the old version, and whoever wanted her blamed had not known she would notice. For 3 seconds after the dashboard corrupted, nobody moved. The ballroom had been built to project confidence. Blue-white panels. Cameras above the aisles. Now the main screen showed red warnings bleeding across Damon's acquisition slide. Caleb Wren was the first executive to react. Cut the external feed. He snapped toward the production booth. A technician fumbled. It's not coming from our deck. What do you mean? It's pushing through the live environment. Reporters lifted phones. Investors leaned toward one another. North Star Meridian's delegation stopped whispering and watched Damon. Damon turned from the screen to Sienna. Not with shock. With opportunity. Security, he said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Keep her here. The guard on Sienna's left tightened his grip around her laptop bag. The other moved between her and the stage exit. Sienna raised both hands slightly, palms visible. My devices are already with your team, she said. Damon faced the audience again. Everyone remain calm. We have containment protocols. The words sounded strong. His eyes did not. Another alert appeared. Executive reporting panel locked. Then another. Privileged access chain detected. Caleb stared at the line. That's from her report. Damon did not miss the opening. Yes, he said. It is. The accusation did not need to be shouted. It only needed a shape. People who had looked away from her humiliation now stared directly at her. A man at the North Star table pushed his chair back. Naomi Vale watched without blinking. Damon stepped closer to Sienna. careful to keep his body angled toward the cameras. "You warned us about this exact chain," he said. "I warned you because it existed. And now it appears on our system minutes after your termination." After my access was revoked, Caleb glanced toward the security lead. "Can we confirm that?" Tara Quinn touched her earpiece. "Badge revoked at 9:16 and 48 seconds. Sienna kept her eyes on Damon. "My phone and laptop were taken before the first public alert." Damon's mouth tightened, but he recovered. "An attack can be staged in advance." "Yes," Sienna said. "It can." That answer hurt her. Several faces hardened. Damon almost smiled. Sienna let the pause last only long enough for him to think he had gained ground. "But if it was staged in advance by me," she continued, "then your next question should be why the first visible payload used a service chain I asked you to disable in writing." Caleb said, "Do not turn this into a technical debate. It is a technical incident. It is an active breach. Then stop treating it like a press problem." Caleb's jaw moved once. Damon's expression shifted in a smaller way, almost invisible to anyone who had not spent 3 years watching him manufacture calm. Naomi finally stood. "Mr. Voss," she said, "move your response team to the war room. Miss Park stays under security supervision until we know what happened." "Naomi," Damon said, "with respect, she should be removed from the building. If she is removed with counsel present and a full custody record." Naomi replied. "Not through a side door during a breach." On his own stage, Damon had to accept an instruction. Tara nodded to the guards. "Hold position." "Nobody gives her a device." "I don't need a device to tell you your containment plan is already late," Sienna said. Caleb turned on her. "You are not advising this response." "I know. Good. But your backup clock is still attached to the legacy scheduler." That stopped Evan Reed behind the SOC console. Caleb did not look back. "We are aware of our own scheduler." "No," Sienna said. "You are aware of the one in the audit summary, not the one your deployment service can still reach." Damon cut in. "She is using inside terminology to confuse the room. I'm using inside terminology because this is an inside problem." The murmur changed. It had started to move away from Damon. For nearly 2 hours, the summit became a controlled collapse. Guests were pushed back, reporters held behind security, and Northstar's lawyers returned from a side lounge with colder faces. Inside the glass-walled war room, Caleb's team fought alerts they did not understand while Sienna remained outside, badge gone and hands empty. By the time the next warning appeared on the main screen, the room was no longer watching a presentation. It was watching a company try not to become evidence. 11, 46, PM. Sienna read the next alert as it appeared. Log retention policy override requested. A normal attacker would chase leverage. Data, money, disruption. This one was reaching for memory. "Caleb," she said, "do not restore from backup." He was already moving toward the glass-walled war room with Damon behind him. "Do not restore," she repeated. Caleb stopped at the door. Sienna pointed toward the screen with her chin, because her hands were still visible to security. "That override is not locking data first. It is clearing audit history. If you restore too early, you may carry the compromised authority into the clean environment." Caleb looked at the alert. Then at Evan. Evan did not speak, but he was pale now. Damon saw the exchange and moved quickly. "She is guessing." "No," Sienna said. "I'm reading the order of operations." Another line appeared. Backup snapshot queued for rotation. 11:59 p.m. The room did not believe her. But for the first time since the attack began, it was not sure it believed Damon either. The war room had glass walls, which made it look transparent from the ballroom. It was not. From beside the stage, with Tara and 2 guards near her, Sienna could see bodies moving behind the glass but not the full dashboards. She heard fragments whenever the door opened. Caleb's voice carried because he wanted it to. "Isolate the reporting cluster," he ordered. "Reset elevated sessions. Bring up the last clean snapshot." Evan sat at the SOC console inside, shoulders stiff. Sienna turned to Tara. If he restores before separating the scheduler, he may reconnect the same privilege chain. Tara did not look at her. You are not part of the response team. No, Sienna said. I'm the patch. Tara's eyes moved once toward the war room. She did not soften, but she listened. Inside, Caleb pointed at the screen. Why is the reporting cluster still talking to backup control? One analyst answered too fast. Could be cached permissions. No, Sienna said from outside the glass. Nobody inside heard her except Evan. He glanced toward her, then quickly back to his monitor. Caleb continued, kill the session. Evan hesitated. Which one? All elevated sessions tied to reporting. Sienna took one step forward. Both guards shifted. Evan, she called. Not loudly, but enough. His hands stopped. Damon, near the war room door, turned sharply. Do not speak to my analysts. Sienna kept her eyes on Evan. Ask him what owns the child process before he kills the parent. Caleb opened the door. That is enough. You're treating the symptom, Sienna said. The reporting cluster is not the origin, it's the mask. Caleb looked back at the dashboard. Evan? Evan swallowed. There is a child process tied to the backup scheduler. Caleb's face tightened. Why did you not say that? I just saw it. Sienna saw the lie in his posture. He had noticed because she told him where to look. Damon stepped into the war room. Proceed with containment. Caleb gave the order. Terminate the reporting sessions. Restore the executive panel from the last clean snapshot. No, Sienna said. This time Naomi Vale heard her from the front row, where she had been speaking with legal counsel. If the snapshot was queued after the service authority changed, Sienna said, it is not clean. It only looks clean because your visible user sessions were clean. Caleb laughed once without humor. You cannot know the state of a snapshot you cannot access. I can know the sequence. Log retention, override first. Backup rotation second. Executive panel lock third. That is not panic. That is staging. Inside the war room, Evan's screen flashed amber. Restore pre-check. Dependency warning. Caleb stared at it. He had expected green. What dependency? Damon demanded. Evan answered quietly. Legacy deployment service. The phrase moved through the war room like a cold draft. Caleb leaned over Evan's shoulder. That service was supposed to be restricted. It was, Evan said. On named access. Sienna closed her eyes for half a second. Named access. The same mistake again. Damon pushed closer. Can we restore or not? Caleb did not answer. That hesitation was the first honest thing he had done all night. Naomi approached the glass. Mr. Wren? Caleb straightened. We need to review the dependency before restoring. Sienna said, you need to quarantine the scheduler before you touch the snapshot. Damon spun toward her. You are not giving instructions. I'm warning you what happens if he does it wrong. And how convenient that only you understand the disaster you predicted. Every correct statement she made could be bent into proof of guilt. So she changed tactics. Then don't take it from me, she said. Ask Evan to read the process tree out loud. Evan froze. Damon's stare found him. Caleb said, Evan. For a moment, Evan looked smaller than his chair. Then his eyes dropped to the console. Reporting dashboard spawned credential validation request. Evan read. Validation request inherited deployment service token. Deployment service opened backup scheduler handshake. Tara's radio crackled at Sienna's side. Someone from production asked whether the summit feed should be cut. Naomi answered before Damon could. Keep internal recording running. Damon's head turned. There it was. A fracture. It was not trust in Sienna. It was procedure, refusing to serve only Damon. On the ballroom screen, another alert appeared. Audit history compression initiated. Compression is not the breach, Sienna said. It is the cleanup. Caleb shifted toward Evan. Can you stop it? Evan's fingers moved, then stopped. Not without touching the scheduler. Don't stop it from there, Sienna said. Mirror it first. Caleb turned toward her, angry because he understood. If they mirrored the audit history first, they might preserve what the attacker wanted erased. Damon understood enough to know he did not like it. "No," he said, "we are not copying compromised material during an active breach." Sienna looked at Naomi. "If you don't, you may lose the only record that tells you who opened the door." Naomi's legal counsel whispered into her ear. The backup clock dropped to 11:39 p.m. Inside the war room, Caleb stood between the order Damon wanted and the mistake Sienna had predicted. The room with all the access waited on the woman who had none. Naomi Vale did not ask the room whether they believed Sienna. She asked for a timeline. That single word changed the temperature of the ballroom more than any speech could have. Belief could be bent. Fear could be used. A timeline either held or it did not. "Tara," Naomi said, "I want every custody point from the moment Miss Park's credentials were revoked." Damon stepped forward. "Naomi, this is a live breach. Which is why I am asking for records, not opinions." Tara Quinn looked uncomfortable for the first time. She was a security lead, not an executive. Procedure was where she lived. If Naomi wanted procedure, Tara could not pretend it did not exist. "Badge revocation at 9 hours 16 minutes and 48 seconds, Tara said, reading from her phone after another guard handed it to her. "Device seizure began at 9 hours 18 minutes and 2 seconds. Laptop bag transferred to security custody at 9 hours 18 minutes and 19 seconds. Phone placed in evidence pouch at 9 hours 18 minutes and 31 seconds. Sienna kept her hands visible at her sides. Naomi turned toward the production booth. "First public alert?" A technician answered from the aisle. 9 hours 23 minutes and 7 seconds. Caleb, still inside the war room, turned from the console. His expression had changed, not softened, sharpened. "That does not clear pre-staging," Damon said quickly. "No," Sienna said. "It clears live execution from my devices after termination." Damon pointed toward the screen. "You could have scheduled it earlier." "I could have scheduled something," she said, "but not the admin commands you are seeing now unless the path remained open and someone with current authority let it move." Caleb's mouth tightened because the sentence was true. Naomi asked, "Can we confirm the first elevated command?" Evan looked at Caleb before answering. Caleb gave a reluctant nod. Evan pulled the event sequence onto the internal monitor. The ballroom could not see the full dashboard, but Sienna watched the reflection in the glass. The timestamps were faint, reversed, and incomplete, but enough. "First elevated command at 9 hours 24 minutes and 11 seconds, Evan said. Tara added, 8 minutes after revocation. Damon's voice dropped. "Scheduled." Sienna turned to him. Then the scheduled task would show an origin token created before 9:16. Caleb's eyes moved to Evan. Evan typed. The room waited badly. Whispers, vibrating phones, scraping chairs, and one narrow attention aimed at the screen. Evan swallowed. Origin token was created at 9 hours 21 minutes and 34 seconds. Tara looked up. Sienna did the math aloud because she wanted no one to do it for Damon. 3 minutes after my devices were taken. Almost 5 minutes after my badge was revoked. Damon did not turn toward the audience this time. He spoke to Naomi. A remote trigger could still be involved. It could, Sienna said, but then you need a remote trigger that created a current internal token through a service account I asked you to disable after you removed my access. While I was standing on stage in front of cameras, Damon's face gave nothing away, but his right hand touched his cufflink twice. Naomi noticed. Camera footage, she said. Damon's head turned. That is unnecessary. It is necessary for custody. The production technician pulled up the stage recording on a side monitor. It showed Sienna under the lights at 9:21. Her hands were empty. One guard held her laptop bag. Another sealed her phone. Damon stood close enough to the microphone for his calm voice to become part of the record. On the footage, Sienna did not move toward any device. On the current dashboard, the breach kept moving anyway. Naomi studied Damon as if he were part of the incident, not above it. Miss Park remains under supervision, Naomi said. But we do not refer to her as the source without evidence. Damon's smile returned, smaller and colder. Of course, we should be precise. Sienna knew that tone. He had lost one version of the accusation, not the desire to make it true. Inside the war room, Caleb leaned over Evan's station. Pull the service account owner. Evan typed, then stopped. What? Caleb asked. The owner field is blank. That is impossible. It was changed, Evan said. Recently. Sienna felt Damon's attention cut toward Evan like a blade. There it was. The first real crack. It did not name the person behind the breach, but it proved someone was trying to erase the hand that had opened the door. Damon moved fast. Blank owner fields happen during migrations. We are wasting time. Sienna checked the backup clock. 11:34 p.m. No, she said. You are losing time because someone wants you looking at me instead of the account that still has access. Naomi spoke before Damon could. Mr. Wren, she said, preserve that account record before anything else changes. Caleb hesitated only once. Then he said, Evan, mirror it. Evan's fingers moved. Sienna did not have to ask twice. By 11:36 p.m., the summit no longer looked like a summit. The champagne had been cleared from the front tables. Reporters were held near the west exit. North Star Meridian's delegation had moved into a side lounge with 2 attorneys and no smiles. The ballroom lights stayed low because half the screens were now emergency monitors. Sienna remained beside the stage under Tara Quinn's supervision. That was the strange cruelty of it. She had stopped bad commands and forced the first preservation of a disappearing service account. Yet she still stood outside the glass like a suspect. Damon understood that better than anyone. When he could no longer win the technical argument quickly, he changed the battlefield. A legal associate hurried toward Naomi with a tablet. Damon intercepted her halfway. Preliminary incident language, he said, taking the tablet before Naomi could. We need to control exposure before midnight. Naomi held out her hand. I'll read it. Damon did not give it over at once. This is standard containment. Then there should be no problem showing it to the board chair. A beat passed. He handed it to her. Sienna watched Naomi read the first paragraph. She did not need to see the words. Naomi's expression did the work, not shock, not anger, but the focused stillness of someone finding a knife in a folded napkin. Naomi looked up. Disgruntled former architect? Damon's reply was immediate. It is a placeholder. My name is not a placeholder, Sienna said. Damon turned to her. You are not part of this conversation. You put me in the document. Naomi scrolled. It says the breach appears related to a previously documented vulnerability authored by Miss Park. Accurate, Damon said. In a report your executive team chose not to remediate, Sienna said. Caleb, inside the war room, stopped typing. Damon ignored him. The report demonstrates knowledge. The report demonstrates warning. Depending on intent. That word landed exactly where he wanted it to. Intent. It was softer than guilt and more dangerous than suspicion. It could live in a legal memo for years. Evan Reed sat frozen at the SOC console, gray under the monitor light. Shen na saw it. Evan, she said, what version of my report are they citing? Damon snapped. Do not answer her. Naomi's voice cut through his. Answer the question. Evan looked at Caleb first. Caleb looked at Damon. Damon looked at nobody. That was answer enough for Sienna, but Evan opened the archive anyway. His hands shook as he pulled up the restricted legal copy. On the side monitor, the document title appeared. Recursive Admin Delegation through Legacy Service Chain. Below it was her name. Below that, a revision date from 12 days earlier. I did not revise that report 12 days ago, Sienna said. Damon said, documents are routinely summarized for legal review. That is not a summary field. That is a revision field. Evan clicked into the version history. The first entries were familiar. Her uploads, her diagrams, her containment recommendations. Then, 12 days earlier, a new version appeared under a privileged legal archive account. Evan opened the diff. 3 lines had been added. They were written like technical notes, but they were not hers. They described a possible delayed trigger, a staged credential handoff, and a service chain persistence method. Caleb read them from inside the war room and went quiet. Sienna did not look at Damon. If she did, the anger might become useful to him. Instead, she looked at Naomi. That language turns a risk report into an attack outline. Damon stepped in quickly. Or it records the same scenario we are watching unfold. No, Sienna said. It records a scenario added after I was already being removed from the audit. Evan whispered, there should be a hash. Everyone turned toward him. When Sienna sent me the original draft, he said, I saved a local timestamp for the diagram package. I thought we might need it if Caleb asked for revisions. Damon's face hardened. You kept unauthorized copies of security documentation? Evan flinched. Sienna answered before he could collapse. He kept an integrity reference. Naomi moved closer to the glass. Can you compare it? Evan nodded once. Damon said, this is reckless. We are minutes from backup rotation, and you are letting a junior analyst chase personal loyalty. At the corner of the screen, the clock changed. 11:31 p.m. Sienna spoke carefully. If that altered report becomes the incident source of record before midnight, I do not just look negligent. I look like I wrote instructions. Naomi handed the tablet to her counsel. No statement leaves this building. Damon's voice lowered. You are putting the acquisition at risk. No, Naomi said. You did that when you tried to define the culprit before preserving evidence. Inside the war room, Evan loaded the old hash. For a moment, nothing happened. Then 2 lines appeared. Original package verified. Legal archive version mismatch. The words were small, almost plain, but they cut deeper than accusation. Sienna had not been cleared. Not fully, but the story Damon was building had lost its cleanest lie. The verified mismatch did not clear Sienna's name. It proved only that someone had touched the knife before handing it to the room. Damon knew that. He moved immediately. A modified legal copy does not change the breach, he said. We still have active encryption, client systems failing, and a former architect whose own documentation predicted the path. Naomi's counsel was still looking at the hash result. Caleb was not. He had turned back to the live dashboard, where the attack was spreading in a pattern that made less sense the longer he watched it. Sienna saw his confusion through the glass. Caleb, she said, what is it locking now? He did not answer her. And it. Board archive index, he said. Acquisition diligence notes. Executive risk minutes. Damon's head snapped toward him. Stay focused on client data. That is the point, Sienna said. Naomi looked at her. Explain. Sienna took 1 step toward the glass. Tara shifted with her, keeping close, but did not push her back. If this were ransomware, the attacker would chase leverage first. Client databases, payment systems, contract repositories. But this attack is moving around the highest value data and spending time on internal memory. Board notes, audit history, version logs, ownership fields. A new alert opened. Board, minute, Q3 rédaction Q, active. Naomi's face changed. Damon spoke over it. Internal documents contain sensitive acquisition material. Of course, they are targeted. No, Sienna said. They are being cleaned. Cleaned landed harder than hacked. Evan opened another panel. There are deletion requests queued against archived meeting attachments. Which meetings? Naomi asked. Evan swallowed. The risk committee sessions. Dates, Sienna said. Caleb looked back at her now. Not kindly, not trusting, but listening despite himself. Evan read the first date. Sienna remembered it. That was the day after I submitted the access chain report. The next date appeared. That was when Caleb moved remediation to post. Close. Caleb's jaw set. That was a leadership decision. The system does not care what you called it, Sienna said. It only records who touched what. Another alert flashed. Legal, archive, Diff purge, pending. Evan's hands moved fast. It is trying to delete the comparison we just pulled. Mirror the diff, Sienna said. Damon stepped forward. No one follows her instructions. Naomi did not look away from the screen. Mr. Reed, mirror the diff. Effin did it. A progress bar crawled across his monitor. Damon moved to Naomi. You are allowing a suspect to direct preservation during an active incident. I am allowing the person who has been right for the last 20 minutes to explain what your response team keeps missing. The progress bar reached 100. Evan exhaled, then frowned. There is another purge queue. Where? Caleb asked. Meeting audio transcripts, Evan said. Only 3. He read the dates. Sienna did not need the files opened. The risk committee after my report, she said. The acquisition readiness review. The meeting where my audit access was removed. Caleb's jaw set. Those transcripts are privileged. They are evidence. They are privileged evidence, Naomi said. Damon's polished calm began to thin. This is reckless. We have a live attacker and you are entertaining a theory built by the person most motivated to redirect blame. Sienna turned to him. No. I am naming the pattern. The backup clock read 11:26 p.m. On the screen, the attack opened a new process. Client, data, encryption batch. Queued. The room leaned toward panic. Damon seized it. There, client data. Are we done debating motive? Sienna studied the line. Evan, expand the batch. Caleb snapped. Do not. Naomi said. Expand it. Evan opened the process tree. The batch had not started. It was queued behind an internal purge job. Sienna pointed with her chin. It is theater. Caleb read the dependency and went still. The client encryption batch is pressure, Sienna said. It scares everyone into restoring too soon while the real resources stay pointed at internal records. Naomi's counsel whispered. So the data threat is a distraction? No, Sienna said. It is real enough to hurt people if ignored. But it is not the first objective. Then what is? Naomi asked. Sienna looked through the glass at the queues stacked on the monitor. Risk minutes, legal archive diffs, transcript purges, service account ownership, backup scheduler history. The first objective is to erase who knew. No one answered. Sienna kept going before Damon could repaint the moment. The second objective is to leave behind a cleaner story. My report as an attack plan, my termination as motive, the staged client batch as panic, and an incident statement signed before the originals survive the night. Naomi's eyes moved to Damon. Damon shook his head slowly. That is an elegant conspiracy. It is not elegant, Sienna said. It is rushed. Caleb looked up. Rushed how? The exploit path is old. The legal copy uses a revision style I never use. The owner field was blanked instead of reassigned. And whoever queued the client batch forgot the scheduler would show dependency order before execution. Evan's voice came from inside the war room. She's right. Damon looked at him. This time Evan did not shrink. The client batch is queued to display before it executes, Evan said. It is meant to be seen. The room was not safe. Sienna knew better than that. But the center of the story moved. The attack was no longer just happening to Asterion Shield. It was being arranged in front of them. And the question was no longer whether Sienna had known too much. It was who had needed her knowledge to look like guilt. Damon stopped trying to convince the room all at once. He began dividing it. That was what made him dangerous. He did not need everyone to believe him again. He only needed Naomi slowed, Caleb proud, Evan frightened, and Sienna far enough from the war room that her warnings arrived too late. He stepped away from the glass and took a call near the side corridor. Sienna could not hear the words, only see his reflection in the dark window. Head lowered, one hand covering the microphone. Tara saw it too. Who is he calling? Sienna asked. Tara did not answer. Inside the war room, Caleb was still staring at the queued purges. We need outside forensic support. Damon returned before Naomi could respond. I already contacted Sentinel Ridge, he said. Naomi turned. When? During the breach. That is not an answer. Damon's smile was thin. When it became clear our internal team was compromised, Sienna looked at Evan through the glass. His face changed before anyone spoke. Naomi asked, "Mr. Reed?" Evan's voice came quietly over the room speaker. Sentinel Ridge connection request was logged at 9:19 p.m. Caleb looked up. That was before the first public alert. Damon did not flinch. "We had internal indicators." "Who reported them?" Naomi asked. Damon's silence lasted half a second too long. Then he said, "This is exactly why I wanted the unstable elements removed before tonight. We are losing operational focus." He walked toward the war room door and lowered his voice, but anger made it carry. "Evan, you are an analyst, not an investigator. Stop freelancing." Evan's hands left the keyboard. Sienna saw him folding inward. Damon continued, "Every command you run under her influence becomes part of your record. Think carefully about whose career you are protecting." It was advice with teeth. Evan stared at the console. Sienna spoke before fear could settle around him again. "Evan, do not answer him. Preserve the Sentinel request log." Damon turned hard. "Remove her from visual range." Tara's posture changed. The guards waited for her order. Naomi stepped in. "No." Damon faced her. "She is directing staff during an incident. She is under supervision. Mr. Reed is operating the system. Mr. Wren is still in command." Caleb looked as if he disliked every part of that sentence. Damon seized on it. "Then command, Caleb. Cut the external display. Lock the glass feed. No more hallway commentary." Caleb hesitated. That hesitation told Sienna he understood. If they cut her view, Damon regained the dark. "Caleb," Damon said, colder now, "do your job." Caleb gave the order. The war room glass shifted from clear to privacy frost. The monitors inside became pale shapes. Now Sienna could no longer see the system. Damon's shoulders loosened. "There," he said. "Now professionals can work." Sienna checked the backup clock still visible on the ballroom's main screen. 11:21 p.m. She had lost sight of the process trees, the purge queues, the dependency warnings. But Damon had made one mistake. He had cut the view only after the room had learned what he wanted hidden. Naomi's counsel approached her with a tablet. Sentinel Ridge sent a proposed incident handoff. Naomi read, "They are requesting authority to take forensic control and suspend internal preservation to prevent contamination." Sienna turned sharply. "That would let them replace the chain of custody." Damon said, "It would let professionals contain the breach. It would let your vendor become the first clean narrator." Naomi looked at him. "Why does their template already mention a suspected insider?" Damon's eyes moved to the tablet. Caleb came out of the war room, leaving Evan inside behind the frosted glass. His face had changed from irritation to something more brittle. "The Sentinel request includes our internal case number," Caleb said. Naomi asked, "Who gave it to them?" Caleb looked at Damon. Damon's voice hardened. "I authorized a parallel response because leadership requires preparation." "No," Sienna said. "Preparation would have preserved options." This prepared a conclusion. The frosted glass hid Evan, but not his voice. "I mirrored the request log before the feed locked," he said. Damon turned toward the glass. Evan continued, quieter but clear. "There's also a message attached to the vendor packet." Naomi stepped closer. "Read it." Pause. Then Evan read the words Damon had not expected anyone to keep. "Make it look contained before North Star asks who knew." The ballroom seemed to draw inward around that sentence. Damon measured Naomi, Caleb, and Sienna in a single sweep. His expression did not collapse. Men like Damon rarely collapsed in public. They recalculated. "That message is being taken out of context," he said. Sienna faced the frosted glass. "No," she said. "It finally has one." Naomi Vale did not make the decision because she trusted Sienna. She made it because every alternative had begun to look worse. The vendor message still hung over the ballroom like smoke. Damon had called it context. Nobody had asked him to provide any. Naomi turned to Tara Quinn. "Miss Park remains under security supervision." Tara nodded. No devices, Naomi continued. No keyboard, no console. No unsupervised communication. Damon seized the opening. Then remove her from the response entirely. Naomi did not look at him. I'm not finished. She faced Caleb through the glass. Mr. Wren, you will execute technical commands. Mr. Reed will record every command and timestamp. Counsel will observe. The internal recording continues. Miss Park may advise verbally only. Sienna felt the terms close around her like a cage. Then she understood the other side of them. A cage could also protect the record. If I suggest a command, she said, Caleb repeats it before execution. Evan logs it. Tara confirms I never touch a device. Tara's eyes flicked toward her. Correct. Damon gave a short laugh. This is absurd. No, Naomi said. This is chain of custody. The frosted glass cleared halfway. Sienna could see the dashboards from the threshold, away from the ballroom cameras. Caleb stayed at the console. Evan opened a fresh incident log. Sienna checked the backup clock. 11 PM. First, she said, do not stop the client encryption batch. Caleb turned. That is the visible threat. It is visible because someone wants it visible. If you kill it first, the purge jobs finish underneath it. He hated that she was right. She heard it in the pause before he spoke. Proposed action, Caleb said, leave client batch queued. Prioritize preservation of audit purge targets. Evan typed. Logged. Sienna continued. Mirror legal archive diff. Risk committee minutes. Owner history. And scheduler dependency map to read-only storage. Caleb repeated it. Evan logged it. Caleb executed. The progress bars appeared one by one. Damon stood behind Naomi, expression controlled again. Sienna knew he was waiting for one error, one failed command, one sign he could use. The first mirror completed. Then the second. The third stopped at 62%. Access denied. Owner metadata locked. Caleb's mouth tightened. Owner history is locked. Sienna watched the error text. That lock is not defensive, she said. It is a hold. Caleb frowned. A hold? Someone froze the owner metadata so it could not be overwritten by the purge. They wanted it hidden, not destroyed. Evan leaned closer to his screen. There's a sealed attribute. Damon cut in. Do not open sealed metadata during an active breach. Do not open it, Sienna said. Mirror the container around it. Caleb repeated it. Evan logged it. Counsel watched. The command ran. This time, the mirror completed. On the secondary screen, a preserved object appeared with a long internal reference number. Evan highlighted it but did not open it. Sienna saw only the prefix, exec exception. Naomi saw it too. Preserve that, she said. Caleb moved to the backup scheduler. Now we quarantine? After the mirror, Sienna said. Caleb looked ready to break something. You told us to quarantine the scheduler. After the mirror, before credential rotation. Rotate first and you break the trace. Quarantine first and you freeze the inherited token inside the snapshot. Caleb stared at the dependency map. The anger in his face became concentration. Quarantine scheduler handshake, he said. Preserve inherited token trace. Delay credential rotation. Evan logged it. Caleb executed. For a breath. Every screen held. Then the red purge queue stopped advancing. Audit history compression paused. Evan whispered, it stopped. Damon moved toward the door. Why is the client batch still queued? Because it was never first, Sienna said. Caleb opened the process priority list. The client encryption batch sat near the top visually, flashing red, but its execution priority was lower than 3 internal cleanup processes. Naomi's counsel took a photo of the screen. Damon saw the gesture. That display is privileged. It is now preserved, Naomi said. The backup clock changed. 11 PM. Sienna pointed with her chin. Now isolate the clean snapshot from the legacy chain. Caleb repeated it. Evan logged it. Caleb executed. A new warning appeared. Snapshot isolation will disable executive reporting failover. Caleb looked over his shoulder. That will take the executive panel offline. Good, Sienna said. Damon's voice sharpened. That panel is what Northstar is watching. That panel is how the service chain is walking into backup, Sienna said. You can impress Northstar, or you can preserve the company. Naomi answered before Caleb could. Disable it. Caleb's hand hovered over the key. He looked once at Damon, then at the screen. He executed. The executive reporting panel went black. The client encryption batch disappeared from the public monitor. In the ballroom, people gasped, thinking the system had failed completely. Inside the war room, Evan looked at the internal dashboard. Backup snapshot isolated, he said. Purge queues frozen. Client batch contained in dead queue. Sienna let herself breathe once, only once, because the preserved owner metadata had not been opened yet, and Damon knew it. Naomi stepped closer to the threshold. Mr. Wren, can you confirm Miss Park did not touch the system? Caleb turned from the console. His pride fought him all the way to the answer. Yes, he said. She did not touch the system. Tara added, she remained under supervision. Evan looked at the incident log. Every command was executed by Caleb and logged before execution. Naomi faced Sienna. What is next? Sienna kept her focus on the preserved EXECE exception object. Now, she said, we find out whose name was worth hiding. Naomi did not let Damon move the confrontation into a private room. He asked for executive session, counsel only, and a pause in recording until Sentinel Ridge arrived. Each request sounded reasonable alone. Together, they sounded like a door closing over evidence. Naomi kept the war room recording live. The frosted glass cleared fully. The ballroom cameras stayed off the dashboards, but the board, counsel, Caleb, Evan, Tara, and 2 Northstar representatives could see the preserved evidence. Damon stood near the podium he had used earlier to erase Sienna. We are losing perspective, Damon said. His voice was calm again, rebuilt piece by piece. Asterion Shield is under attack. We have a former employee with documented hostility toward the acquisition, unique knowledge of the vulnerability, and a direct emotional motive after termination. He addressed Naomi, Northstar, and the attorneys. Sienna Park wrote the report. She refused alignment. She appeared tonight after being instructed not to interfere. Minutes later, the system was compromised through the exact change she documented. Sympathy cannot guide leadership. The lie was dangerous because it had enough real pieces to resemble truth from a distance. Sienna stood 3 steps outside the war room threshold, still beside Tara. No badge. No device. No chair. She waited until Damon finished. Then she said, "You are right about one thing." Damon's eyes narrowed. "I wrote the report." She turned to Naomi. "Pull up the timeline." Evan displayed the sequence: badge revocation, device seizure, vendor request, origin token, first alert, first elevated command, owner removal, legal archive mismatch. My credentials were revoked at 9 hours 16 minutes and 48 seconds. My devices entered custody by 9 hours 18 minutes and 31 seconds. Sentinel Ridge received a request at 9:19. The breach token appeared at 9 hours 21 minutes and 34 seconds. The first alert hit at 9 hours 23 minutes and 7 seconds. The first elevated command ran at 9 hours 24 minutes and 11 seconds. She looked at Caleb. "Confirm." Caleb's face tightened. "Confirmed. That means the active internal token was created after I lost access, and after my devices were in custody." Damon said, "Scheduled triggers exist." "They do," Sienna said. "So show the pre-revocation origin token." No one moved. Because there was none. Sienna turned back to the screen. Now the service account. Caleb brought up the mirrored record. The owner field still appeared blank in the live view, but the preserved sealed container sat beside it, labeled exec exception. Naomi said, "Open the preserved metadata." Damon stepped forward. "That object may be contaminated." Sienna shook her head once. The container was mirrored before quarantine and logged under council observation. Opening the preserved copy does not touch production. Caleb repeated the statement for the record, then opened the file. The hidden owner trail expanded. Maris. Klein. Executive Operations. The COO's name appeared in plain text. Behind the North Star delegation, Maris Klein went white. Damon's eyes moved toward her for less than a second. Sienna saw it. So did Naomi. Maris spoke first. That account was used for acquisition readiness. I did not authorize an attack. Sienna said. No one said you wrote the malware. Caleb opened the command history. The account modified the legal archive summary 12 days ago. Evan added, same account requested owner field removal tonight. Damon cut in. Executive Operations manages documents constantly. This is being inflated. Sienna nodded. Then the vendor packet should not bother you. Naomi's counsel displayed the Sentinel Ridge request. Timestamp. 9:19 del pomeriggio. Attached message. Make it look contained before North Star asks who knew. Damon's expression stayed controlled, but the room had moved beyond his control. I meant contain the incident, he said. Not conceal knowledge. Sienna looked at the Risk Committee archive. Then opened the transcript Damon tried to lose. Naomi approved it. Evan opened the preserved transcript from the meeting after Sienna's report. Damon's own voice played through the war room speaker. We cannot put this in front of North Star before close. Reframe it as theoretical. Post-close remediation is acceptable exposure. The playback stopped. Caleb stared at the floor. Sienna did not let the pause become pity. Open the second transcript. Effondit. Caleb's voice filled the room this time. Sienna will not sign off if the staged attribution language stays in. Remove her from the audit track and route final risk language through legal. Caleb closed his eyes. Naomi turned to him. Is that accurate? He swallowed. Yes. Damon looked at Caleb with contempt, as if betrayal offended him more than the truth. Sienna had expected Caleb to protect himself. But when he spoke again, his voice changed. I thought she was obstructing the deal, Caleb said. I thought she was exaggerating. I was wrong about the vulnerability. I was wrong about the report. And tonight, every time I treated the breach like a standard ransomware event, she corrected the sequence before the system proved her right. Damon said. Careful. Caleb. Caleb looked at him. I am being careful now. Facts damaged Damon. Admission wounded him deeper. But the final cut came from the person he had counted on staying afraid. Evan stood inside the war room. I signed the memo against Sienna, he said. Sienna turned to him. Evan kept his eyes on Naomi because if he looked at Sienna, he might not finish. I did not write it. I was told it was an internal alignment note. Caleb said refusing would make me look like part of the problem. Damon's office sent the language. Damon said, this is self-preservation. Yes, Evan said. His voice shook once, then steadied. It was. That is why I signed it. The admission landed differently because he did not polish it. I was scared, Evan continued. I told myself the report would still be fixed later, but Sienna was not trying to stop the company. She was trying to stop exactly this. He pulled up the original hash package. I kept the timestamp because part of me knew we were being asked to bury something. Tonight, someone changed her report to make it look like instructions. She wrote warnings. We turned them into motive. No one corrected him. Damon looked around the room and found fewer places to stand. North Star's lead attorney closed his folder. Naomi removed the unsigned acquisition statement from the tablet and placed it face down. Mr. Voss, Naomi said, you are suspended from operational authority pending independent investigation. Damon laughed once, softly. You are making a catastrophic mistake. No, Naomi said. I am finally preserving the record before you rewrite it. Tara stepped toward Damon, not aggressively, but with procedure in her posture. The same procedure that had held Sienna now turned toward him. Damon looked at Sienna at last. You think this restores you? He asked. Sienna looked at the broken badge still sealed in Tara's evidence pouch. No, she said. It restores what happened. On the backup monitor, the clock changed to 11:07 p.m. The clean snapshot remained isolated. The purge cues remained frozen. The evidence survived. The company had not been saved by the man who sold trust from a stage. It had been saved by the woman he tried to turn into a warning. The first thing Naomi Vale did after suspending Damon was not apologize. She ordered the room sealed. That told Sienna more than an apology would have. Apologies could be shaped for public release. A sealed room protected evidence. Tara Quinn moved with quiet efficiency. Security took Damon's access card, his phone, and the tablet he had used during the summit. He objected once, then saw that Naomi's counsel was recording every word and stopped giving them useful sound. Maris Klein did not protest at all. That frightened Sienna more. The COO sat at the North Star table with both hands folded, staring at the preserved exception metadata, as if still hoping the name might rearrange itself. When Tara asked her to step away from the delegation, Maris stood too quickly. "I was following executive direction," Maris said. Naomi did not look away from the war room screens. "Then you will have the chance to say that to independent investigators." Independent. The word mattered. Sentinel Ridge was removed from the handoff. A neutral forensic team was called through the board's emergency council. North Star paused the acquisition pending review. No one cheered. The damage was too large for victory to look clean. At 11:18 p.m., Caleb confirmed the client batch remained contained. At 11:42, the clean backup snapshot was copied to isolated storage. At 11:58, everyone watched the rotation clock reach its final minute. Sienna stood where she had stood for most of the night, just outside the war room threshold. Tara was still beside her. The guard had not given back her phone. The evidence pouch with the cut badge sat on a table near counsel. No one asked her to move. That was the strange part. Hours earlier, the same room had wanted her removed through a side exit. Now executives turned toward her before making decisions. Not because she had a title, but because the system had revealed what her title used to hide. At 11:59 p.m., the rotation executed. Nothing vanished. The preserved logs remained. The isolated snapshot held. The purge cues stayed frozen. Evan lowered his head over the keyboard, not in celebration, but relief. Caleb stepped out of the war room. For a moment, he still looked like the man who had replaced her. Expensive suit, controlled posture. Pride fighting for room. Then he looked at the floor between them. "I was wrong," he said. Sienna waited. He seemed to understand that those 3 words were not enough. "I thought you were blocking the deal because you could not accept risk," Caleb continued. "I did not understand that you were the only one describing it honestly." "You understood enough," Sienna said. "You chose not to." The sentence hit him. He accepted it without defense. "You're right." That was all he offered. It was better than asking for forgiveness he had not earned. Evan came next. He did not come close. He stopped several feet away, as if distance could show respect where courage had failed. "I signed the memo," he said. "I know. I should have told you before tonight." "Yes." He nodded, eyes wet but not theatrical. "I kept telling myself I was too junior to stop anything." Sienna looked through the glass at the consoles, the preserved logs, the frozen purge cues. "You were not too junior to tell the truth." Evan swallowed. "I know that now." Naomi approached with counsel at her side. "Miss Park, your name will not appear as the source of this incident. The preliminary statement is withdrawn. The board will retain independent forensic review, and we would like you to advise the investigation." Sienna faced Damon's empty place near the podium. Earlier, he had taught a room how to doubt her. Now his badge sat in Tara's custody tray beside hers, both stripped of access for very different reasons. "What authority would I have?" Sienna asked. "Independent authority," Naomi said. "Reporting to the board, not executive leadership." Sienna turned toward the war room. "Evan is not made the next sacrifice for signing what you pressured him to sign." Naomi did not hesitate. "His conduct will be reviewed in context. Caleb does not lead the technical review of his own decisions." Caleb answered before Naomi could. I won't. And every client affected gets the truth before they get a polished statement. Naomi's counsel wrote it down. Only then did Sienna nod. The ballroom beyond the glass looked exhausted. Tablecloths were wrinkled. Water glasses had been abandoned. The 40-foot LED screen still showed the company slogan, dimmed now by emergency mode. Trust is built before crisis. Sienna almost laughed. Trust had not been built by the slogan, the stage, or the acquisition deck. It had been built in the ugly minutes after crisis began. One preserved log at a time. Tara picked up the evidence pouch and held it out. Your badge, she said. Or what's left of it. Inside the plastic were two pieces. One half with Sienna's name, the other with the dead access strip. Naomi glanced at it. We can issue a replacement by morning. Evan, still near the console, looked at her. Do you want them to print you a new one? Sienna took the pouch but did not open it. For 3 years, that badge had told doors to let her in. Damon had cut it in front of the room and thought he had cut her out of the truth with it. But the broken thing had done what the polished one never could. It had held the timestamp. It had proved when power ended. It had shown that access was not the same as understanding. Sienna placed the pouch on the table beside the preserved evidence log. No, she said. This one finally says enough. Then she walked toward the ballroom exit. At the security gate, Tara stepped ahead of her and opened the door by hand.